So, Jay Ruud, what lovable book are we talking about today?
Well, I'll give you a hint. This is a quote. This is a record of hate far more than love.
Philip Roth.
Why no?
Welcome to Between the Covers, where Merlin Mystery Series and Robin Hood Mystery Series author Jay Ruud and I, Mr. Catherine author Stacey Margaret Jones, discuss one book from his list of the 100 most lovable novels in the English language each episode. So today, I'm not sure what we're talking about yet. I did not know the first clue, but now I think I might. Give me the next clue, and then I've read it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I know it.
Here's clue number 2. The House on Cedar Road.
Oh. Well, I was going to guess The End of the Affair.
And you'd be right.
Okay, it's because of the hate.
And, well, the hate continues until that was the beginning of the book that I read you.
Right.
And this is...
What's the third clue?
The third clue is the end of the book.
Oh.
Oh, God, you've done enough. You've robbed me of enough. I'm too tired and too old to learn to love. Leave me alone forever.
Yeah. The End of the Affair by Greene.
Greene.
So that was the book that set me off on the Greene reading bender. But I know you're a huge Greene fan. And Graham Greene is really a wonderful novelist to be a fan of because he was prolific.
Very prolific.
And there are lots and lots of novels to read.
Yeah, I think you still have to consider him one of the major British authors of the 20th century.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And the sheer volume of his major novels is likely to keep him there, I think, for the foreseeable future.
Well, I would say he's one of the major... He is a major novelist in English.
Yeah.
I wouldn't limit him to the British scope.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many of his books that...
Yeah, I was going to ask you how you chose because...
It was hard to choose, and especially looking at other lists, the Power and the Glory.
Mm-hmm. The comedians.
Which won the prestigious Hawthornden Prize in England. The Heart of the Matter.
Oh, yeah.
Won the prestigious James Tate Black Memorial Prize. The Power and the Glory is on Time Magazine's list of the 100 best novels in English since 1923. The Heart of the Matter, which is also on Time's list, is number 72 on the BBC list of the 100 greatest British novels, and it's number 40 on the Modern Library's list of the 100 greatest English novels of the century. Brighton Rock is number 42 on the BBC list, and The Quiet American
that's the one I was thinking of.
appears on the Observer's list of the 100 greatest novels of all time. And personally, I would include the thriller The Comedians, set in Papa Doc Duvalier's Haiti, and his novella The Third Man, which is the study for the famous noir film screenplay, among, I think, his most important works. But when it comes time to choose... I thought the one novel I could not leave out was The End of the Affair.
Yeah, it's so emotionally evocative, and it has so many Greenian themes that it's like it's the Greene novel that is got all the wonderful aspects of reading Greene, and I think it is maybe the most emotional, maybe because it's. The other novels are maybe spy. I mean, they have relationships in them. They're political, right? Like The Third Man is a spy novel, kind of.
Kind of, yeah.
But this one is about a love affair.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe that's one of the reasons it's just so accessible. Well,
Greene used to... when he first started out, he wrote 2 different sort of strands, some that he called his novels and some that he called his entertainments. And the entertainments were some of those political thrillers, but
they are still written by Graham Greene.
Well, and he, by the time the 1950s were over, he stopped making that distinction and just
started writing novels.
Yeah. I mean, the human factor, and Our Man in Havana.
Yeah.
Those would have been entertainments, but they still are pretty impressive novels.
They still have a lot of scaffolding.
Yeah.
So let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Can you give me the down and dirty summary of this novel?
Well, the novel begins in World War II, London during the Blitz, and it ends just after the end of the war. Maurice Bendrix, who's the narrator and the protagonist, he's a fledgling novelist hoping to make his reputation, and he wants to write a novel about a civil servant. And in 1942, he begins to meet with Sarah in order to gain information about her ineffective civil servant husband, Henry. And their meetings soon become passionate. All the while, Maurice seems convinced that the affair can't last because of his own irrational jealousy and Sarah's refusal to consider divorcing Henry. Mm-hmm. There's a climactic point in the novel and in the affair. Sarah is with Maurice at his flat when a German bomb strikes the building, and Maurice is knocked cold. When he comes to, he finds a very shaken Sarah who had been convinced he was dead. And the day after that incident, Sarah breaks off their relationship without any explanation. And it leaves Maurice feeling resentful and vengeful. He considers suicide. He begins to hate Sarah. And one rainy evening, 18 months later, Maurice meets Henry in the common area between their neighboring apartments. And Henry has belatedly begun to suspect his wife of infidelity. Maurice's characteristic jealousy is piqued. He decides to hire a private detective to learn just who Sarah's new lover is, and if he's the man that she's dropped him for. Mm-hmm. And that's where I'll end.
Right. All right. Well,
Harps of Glory?
Harps of Glory.
All right.
Absolutely. It is. I was worried about you because the plot is somewhat straightforward, but because it is Greene, there's a lot going on, and I didn't know how.
There's an awful lot going on.
If you would just give us the down and dirty summary, or if you would get sucked down into the plot, into the themes, I guess I should say. Well, yes, and this was a movie. This was a prestige film with Julianne Moore and Stephen Ray and Ray Fiennes.
Yeah, it was actually. It's.
I think I saw the movie first, actually, before I read the book.
That would send you to the book, I think. Actually, there have been two movies. The first one was made in 1955, which is shortly after the book was published in 1951. So in 1955, there was a movie that starred Deborah Carr as Sarah. Yeah. She was nominated for a BAFTA award for it. Van Johnson as Maurice Bendix, and Peter Cushing as Henry.
Interesting.
And it was directed by Edward Dmytryk, who had just directed The Caine Mutiny with Humphrey Bogart.
Sure.
And it received the Palme d'Or nomination at Cannes. And then 44 years later, Neil Jordan directed the film that you were talking about.
Well,
and he had just won an Oscar for directing The Crying Game.
Oh, yeah.
Which is why he got Stephen Ray to be in this movie.
I've never seen The Crying Game. I just can't get over that Stephen Ray was married to that IRA woman, Dolores.
Yeah.
We just saw that miniseries. How funny. Anyway, that movie is, I guess, on a very short list I have of films that are really good adaptations of the books.
Yeah, it's very close to the book.
It's very hard to do it right because you can't just take the book and put it on film. You have to translate it to this new medium, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes people just can't get it. But I think the organizing principle is if you understand the themes of the novel, then you know what scenes, how to turn that into a film.
Yeah.
But if you sometimes I think people, or I guess management gets in the way, that think they know, the themes of the novel might be this, but moviegoers want to see this. Yeah. Then the film is ruined. Right? Yeah. But this was... They
want to see all the sex between...
yeah, exactly.
Between
it's like
Maurice and Sarah.
Like a General Hospital or something. But, it was a wonderful book, or a wonderful film, so I read the novel, and I was absolutely blown away by it. And The thing about Greene novels is they are short.
Yeah, he doesn't have a lot of 800-pagers or anything like
No,
that.
he
This one is
reminds-
particularly short.
Yeah, he reminds me of Ishiguro in the way that his prose is so controlled and so restrained, and there is a world of emotion, right? It's like the iceberg. You just see, you read these words, and they're so well chosen, and the things that happen in the novel are so well crafted that the depths of what is going on within the people becomes so apparent to you, but he doesn't spell that out, right?
Yeah.
And he's really a master at that, I think. To read a short novel that's going to have perhaps a lifetime impact on you, that is what Greene is good for.
Yeah. The novel is told from Maurice's point of view, but Greene has a way of getting other narrators in.
Mm-hmm.
The private detective that Maurice hires.
Which makes it kind of noir.
Yeah. His name is Parkus, and he will tell Maurice things that he's found out. He's found out that Sarah is making regular visits to this house on Cedar Road, where he believes she's seeing her lover, and Maurice believes it too, and goes to visit the place and finds it's not that at all.
Right. Well, and it's interesting because also it has, it's a cliche, but it has this kind of Maurice's turn into toxic masculinity, right? Like, she doesn't want me. I hate her.
Oh, yeah.
Who does she? She can't be rejecting me, or she can't be rejecting this relationship for any reasons except there's somebody else.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
and there is somebody else.
Right, I understand. And I think it's just really so deftly handled, and it's so anybody can relate to this when you have this kind of response to rejection that you can't see straight, and he really can't. He's so self-pitying, he's so wounded by the rejection, and he's not open to understanding. It's like he didn't know her at all, in a way.
No, and he begins to know her better through having her spied on by this. But also,
friends, don't do this.
Parkus.
This is not a how-to novel. Okay.
Parkus finds her diary. And he brings
I forgot that.
Maurice her diary. So we do have a narration from Sarah. And through that, we get to know more about what her real motives were.
Well, that's interesting because, my novel is not, on the level of Greene. But it has a point of view of a bitter male protagonist, right? Or narrator.
Who also
reads diaries.
Reads his wife's diaries.
And it's a technique to get... when you're...
To get another narrator
right,
in.
because when you have a limited perspective, and that perspective is so dark and so self-pitying and kind of spinning out.
It's an unreliable narrator
Yeah.
that you have with Maurice.
So you need a way to tell the reader something else. Hey, there's something else.
And here are things that happen when he's not present.
Right.
Which is, you have no way of doing that if you don't find some other possible way of narrating that.
And it's no secret. It's not unknown to me that Greene was an influence on me because of the way, I wouldn't say that I got the idea for her diary entries, but just because as I was writing it, you just have a feeling like I need to open a window over here, or, this is getting too close.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. But when is it set again?
Well, it's set during World War II.
That's right. That's
mostly.
right, because of the bombing.
Yeah. And then after, in the year or so afterwards.
And when does it come? When did the novel come out again?
1951.
Oh, so really close.
Not long after it's set.
Okay. And last episode, we talked a lot about the characters' religious beliefs. And Sarah has profound religious beliefs.
as it turns out. I mean, she didn't at first at all, and Maurice was definitely not
Right.
religious at all. And this comes as he can't handle this.
Right.
Because this wasn't the way she was with him.
Right.
But in her diary, you find these things out. And in fact, I'm going to say something here that you are going to suggest is a spoiler.
Oh, well.
But it happens exactly halfway through the book. Sarah dies. And there are some unexpected things that happen because of that. Henry misses her so much that he wants Maurice to move in with him and be basically his roommate, which Maurice does. Because they have Sarah in common, essentially.
Does Henry know?
He does by that time.
Oh, wow.
He didn't while it was going on. And
Wow.
yeah.
He just wants some way of being near her.
Yeah.
I forgot that.
But they discovered that Sarah had been talking to a priest and wanted to become a Catholic. And Henry is willing to let her have a Catholic burial, a Catholic funeral. But Maurice is not. And he insists that she be cremated. It's as if he wants to still control her afterlife, I guess, in that way.
Wow.
And he wants to control Henry. He doesn't want her to be the Christian that she had become. He wants her to remain
Frozen
in time to before that bomb knocked him out.
And Henry then is the one who truly loves.
Probably.
Because, well, at least those things are loving. Because he loves who she is, not who he wants her to be.
Yeah.
He's not constraining her to where she's useful to him, as a persona.
Yeah.
He brings in her lover just to have more of her around.
Yeah.
Whereas Maurice is just got this kind of, he doesn't accept her for who she is, and he's trying to keep her from being who she was even when she's died.
Yeah. It's very clear from the things that she does and the things that she says in her diary that she really loves Maurice. And he has so much hate in him that he can't let it in.
And, as a reader, you approach it, you come at it from Maurice's point of view, etc. I think thinking about it as the writer making choices, the only way to really foreground that blinding hatred is to make it the narrator's.
Yeah.
Which is, it's probably better it's a short book.
Yeah.
You don't want to be in that mind too long. Now, Greene was Catholic. Had he converted to Catholicism?
He had. Actually,
okay, so that's interesting.
This is one of what are called his Catholic books, which include Brighton Rock, Power and the Glory, and Heart of the Matter. And then this is the last of his Catholic novels. He converted to Catholicism when he met this woman. Greene called himself a Catholic agnostic. He was a professed agnostic, but he was baptized into the Catholic faith in 1926 after he met a woman named Vivian Darrell Browning, who was a Catholic woman that he later married. And the 4 Catholic novels struggle with his difficulties with the contradictions that he sees in the Catholic faith.
But he stayed. Did you say he stayed Catholic?
Well, I don't know that he ever changed. That he ever became something else.
But he was conflicted.
Yeah. He actually was inspired to write the novel by his own affair with a woman named Catherine Walston, who was the American wife of a wealthy British landowner, who at the age of 30 converted to Catholicism after being inspired by the power and the glory. And she asked Greene to be her godfather when she converted, even though they had never met. And then they ended up having a long affair. Also, Greene's house, his own house, was damaged by a bomb during the London Blitz. So that kind of gave him the idea for the novel's climactic moment. And the end of the affair was born. And he dedicated the book to C for Catherine.
I wonder who that is. Well, it is interesting, and I think that's something that makes it particularly British rather than American, because British do seem to go, it's a big deal for somebody who's culturally Anglican, whether they're deeply spiritual or not, but they're culturally Anglican, to convert to Catholicism. Whereas in the United States, we don't have that relationship with Catholicism, right? And who else converted?
Evelyn Waugh, you might recall.
Tolkien.
Tolkien was Catholic from the time he was a child.
Okay, I was thinking that
he tried
converted.
to convert C.S. Lewis. In fact, he did convert C.S. Lewis, who was an agnostic. But then Lewis became an Anglican instead of a Catholic.
Okay, I knew there was something about conversion there, but I knew that Tolkien was Catholic.
Yeah.
And he and C.S. Lewis were BFF.
Yeah.
And had a lot of discussions about their religious beliefs. And I guess I think about Greene kind of in that way, like I said. It makes it culturally British instead of American.
Yeah. But I think in particular, Evelyn Waugh. He was a good friend of Graham Greene's.
Oh.
And in fact, he wrote a review of The End of the Affair in 1951, and he called it a singularly beautiful and moving book.
Well, because Brideshead Revisited also deals with the conflicts between Catholicism and Anglicanism and cultural Catholicism, cultural Anglicanism, right? Like the spirituality of it, the who believes, who acts like it, right? That's a huge part of Brideshead Revisited.
Yeah.
And that's where some of the central conflict comes from.
Yeah,
is
especially
the characters who believe and the characters who don't believe.
And the narrator is particularly...
is outside.
Yeah,
and that's interesting.
Objects to the Catholicism. It's in a very similar way that you see Maurice in this novel.
They're all wrestling with this system, just these different strains of Christian belief.
Well, and Christian versus agnosticism.
Right. Right, because Maurice is not, he doesn't believe.
No, and neither does Jeremy Irons from Brideshead Revisited.
That's funny, I know exactly who you mean. The novel is, the plot is a love story. Boy meets girl, boy loses girl, right?
Yeah.
But the weight of the novel has to do with religious belief. Yeah.
And it has to do, last week we talked about Owen Meany. Mm-hmm. This is a very, in some ways, very similar plot to Owen Meany.
Yeah, I have the same things in my mind.
Yeah. In fact, John Irving admired Graham Greene a whole lot, and he called him the most accomplished living novelist in the English language early in his career before Greene died. But Owen Meany becomes a kind of Christian saint, basically, at the end of that book.
Right.
And does
miracles.
And creates this miracle. There are things that happen after Sarah has died that are inexplicable from a rational point of view.
Miraculous.
That could be seen as miraculous. That Maurice steadfastly refuses to notice or consider.
Well, that's part of the Catholic novels, because the other novels have those things too that are so moving because they're inexplicable.
Yeah.
That's how Greene shows that Maurice's hate is cutting him off.
Yeah.
From even after he's lost Sarah in the various ways that he loses her, he cuts himself off by his resentment and his hatred over her, the rejection, and his compulsion to control.
Yeah.
Instead of being more like Henry, who accepts her even if it's painful for him.
Yeah.
Because loving someone else, if you truly accept them for who they are instead of making them into who you want them to be, there will probably be some pain, right? Because people hurt each other. They don't mean to, but they do.
Yeah. And Maurice's hatred. There's a great line when the priest that Sarah has talked to visits Henry before the funeral and tries to convince him that she wanted a Catholic funeral. Maurice just goes off on him. Mm-hmm. And the priest sees the pain underneath all the hate. And he says, "You're a good hater." And the hatred comes from his loss and his grief and his jealousy.
Right.
And he's jealous of God for having taken her away from him. And that's why the end of the book has that incredible line. Mm-hmm. God, you've done enough. You've robbed me of enough. I'm too tired and too old to learn to love. Leave me alone forever.
Well, and there's two things that occur to me there is that Henry and Maurice each have cause to be jealous of each other. Because Maurice is jealous of Henry because she wouldn't leave him, right? For her own reasons.
Yeah.
And Henry's jealous of Maurice because she loved Maurice in a way that maybe she didn't love Henry anymore.
Yeah.
But also it seems...
But you don't see Henry. Henry's not a good hater.
Right.
Henry.
And what I'm thinking about in terms of the character of Maurice is, does he change?
No.
Because that's unusual, right? You have a character arc, right? You have you have desire and conflict and change and apotheosis. And
his first sentence is that this is the record of hatred, not love, and his last sentence is basically, he hates God and wants God to leave him alone forever. He's a good hater, and the whole book is...
But isn't that Paradise Lost? Is that the devil is jealous of God or hates God? And isn't there some... Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there is a kind of satanic energy about Maurice. Satan wants to set himself up as a rival to God. Mm-hmm. Maurice is a rival to God in Sarah's view.
I hadn't thought about that before, but the way you were speaking about it.
In fact, it's a kind of a morality play. Yeah. With Maurice as the demonic angel and maybe God himself as the good angel, and Sarah as the everyman kind of person.
But, I mean, Henry's kind of a good angel, isn't he?
I don't know.
Or is he just passive?
I think he's very passive, and there are things you can fault him for.
No, well, he's not two-dimensional. I mean, none of Greene's characters are very real, so it's not. I don't want to make it seem like, but he has a different. He's not a good hater.
No.
He's better at love.
Yeah. And Sarah did feel like he was just kind of her roommate, I guess, after a while, because he seemed to be only concerned about his work. And so she did seek for something else.
She was
somewhere.
lonely, maybe, or less interested. Yeah, I mean, we're talking about all these things that come to mind and how rich it is, and it's not a very long book.
It's only like 200 pages.
Yeah, it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's everybody, all the characters withstand tragedy.
Yeah.
It's really uplifting.
It is, actually. If you can get yourself out of Maurice's mind and look at things objectively. It's an uplifting.
I think it is too. I think of it that way. That they're, like I mentioned last week with Owen Meany, there is a kind of mystical experience to be had with this novel because of Sarah's faith and what she believes
Yeah.
has happened in life. It's profoundly moving.
Yeah.
But don't take Maurice's part too much. I mean, I think it's understandable. Like you can have, you understand why he feels this way.
Yes.
But he can't get himself out of it.
He's understandable, but he's not really sympathetic.
No, and he's unchanging.
Yeah, he does. He's a static character.
Yeah, which is interesting.
Yeah.
As the main character. You know, you have to be a good novelist to succeed with a novel with a static main character.
True.
But Sarah is dynamic.
Yeah.
Which causes the problems because
and Henry is dynamic, actually.
Yes, because they change and grow.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Well, why might someone not like this perfect book? Leading the witness.
I think you might not like it if you really have a negative response to the narrator, to Maurice.
Sure. It's a lot.
It's
intense.
You really have to stick with him and understand him, even if you don't like him that much, or understand why he's the way he is.
Yeah.
Maybe feel like sorry for him that he doesn't see the way out.
It's not a didactic novel.
No,
but
not at all.
It also is. I think it can be helpful to read it and say, "What am I like? What am I this way about? Like, what do I have in my life that I refuse to accept that's causing me pain?"
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't have to be something that intense, right, or life changing.
Yeah.
But there are things in all of our lives that if we just surrendered to them, we'd be better off. And his is the central aspect of his personality.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably something we all struggle with, is things that we don't accept.
Yeah.
That we'd be happier if we did. But all right. Well, how are you ranking this number one book? Another leading question.
I'm going to put this at number 13.
Oh, that low?
So one right after Owen Meany
Oh.
and right before The Great Gatsby.
I would put it above Owen Meany myself,
You'd
but
be
it's not my
wrong.
list. I'd be wrong.
That's my list.
When we finish your
You're the
100
one that's
books,
making me rank them.
I know. When we finish your 100 books, we'll do 100 episodes of how you ranked them wrong. One by one. All right. Well, I love talking about that book. Oh, it's so beautiful.
Well, and what else? What other book do you want to talk about in Chaos Reader?
Well, you never know what Chaos Reader is going to talk about, since Chaos Reader is still reading her Elizabeth and Philip bio. But I got this book out for our grandsons because they were here and we were watching the Great British Baking Show. And I said, I have a cookbook by Paul Hollywood. And we got it out because I've made some things in this. And I'll tell you, I am cripple in the chicken, as I used to say, because I was trying to say that I was a cripple in the kitchen and I said it wrong. So now we always say that I'm a cripple in the chicken. But this book is really great. I mean, I made some pretty complicated things, a Victoria sponge and a bûche de Noël, and even Irish soda bread, which is not that hard, and boy, is it delicious. The only thing about it is it has British measurements, so make sure you don't turn the oven on Celsius. You want to make sure you get that Fahrenheit if you're in America.
Yeah.
But honestly, I really, I don't have a ton of cookbooks because I'm not a huge cook, but I guess as I've gotten older, I like to make things at home because I want to make them the way I want them to be. And I think it is very festive to make your own dessert for a family dinner or a holiday or something, and it's a lot of fun to bring out a very dramatic cake that you've made, or dessert, or pudding. as the British say. So I had this out to show the boys some of the recipes and the things that they were talking about on the British baking show, which they enjoyed a lot. So I thought I would talk about it for Chaos Reader. It's How to Bake by Paul Hollywood. And I think it's a good baking cookbook, because the other cookbooks I have are for, entrees and dinners. I'm not a big baker because I don't like to have those things around. I just eat them. But it's still fun, and I think this was a really good way to learn about it. So,
Okay.
all right. Well, we'd like to thank our producing sensei, Jerry Bruno, as always. As we record this, we don't even know yet what questions we'll have for him.
No, or what I'm going to botch when I start editing it.
So thank you, Jerry. Also, thank you to our listeners and viewers. We really do appreciate you. I'd like to ask you to keep participating, liking, sharing, and telling your friends about our little books podcast. We really do appreciate you, and we'll see you next week. Between the covers.